Hi, so welcome to the Pure Yoga Strength and Conditioning for October. So this first practice of October is going to give you good mindful thoughts on how to engage your abdominals. So thinking about your rib and hip tether, the squeeze of the glutes, the squeeze of the upper thighs, the strengthening through the lower back, and all this will do is help keep some control in the middle. We're going to be doing quite a lot of planks, and the planks are going to be straight leg planks. If you want to drop the base knee, feel free to do so at any time and just work with how your body needs to work. I'm going to be doing full vinyasa of lowering in plank with a straight body, but we are going to be lower and lifting back up. So we will be taking a plank push-up. So if again you need to drop the knees, feel free to do so. The one thing I ask you to do is not collapse in the centre of the body. If you feel like your back is starting to arch too much, then maybe drop the knees in anything that we do. So either if that's a side plank or if it's a full plank, always be mindful of this strength in the centre. So a good idea of what does happen in planks is sometimes when I get you to lower, the problem that happens is people start to collapse here and they lower to this place. And then they try and push up and they're collapsed in the centre of the body. I want you to think about keeping it nice and strong in that middle part, turning the creases of the elbows as you take that plank push up. And then you push back up in a straight line, but try not to let that middle part of the body collapse. So it's quite a strong practice, but it will help strengthen the outside of the hips, the glute maximus. So all these rotator muscles, it'll help strengthen the oblique muscles, the abdominal muscles. And we're going to be also working on this psoas muscle as well, which connects the ribs towards the upper part of the thighs. It's our sit-up muscle. So we are going to start in a seated position first. So just bringing our bums into the centre of the mat and finding a cross-leg position, whatever feels most comfortable to you. I'm just going to do a little spinal articulation just to warm that spine up. So first of all, just place the hands on top of the thighs. If you're on the knees, just place them on top of the thighs also. Roll the shoulders up towards the ears, back down towards the hips. Grow up nice and tall through the crown, up through the spine, but let the shoulders relax. And just think about where the ribs are right now. If they're feeling like they're flaring a little, think about that little tether of the ribs and hips. It's almost a micro movement on the internal part of the body rather than the noticing on the external part of the body. So it's almost feeling like you're bringing your hips towards the ribs and maybe your opposite rib towards your opposite hips. So you get a real strong corset muscle engagement. Keeping nice and tall through the back, so you're switching on those muscles through the spine, the erector spinae muscles, the lat muscles that are in the lower back all the way up to the armpits, and the trapezius muscles which are up around the shoulders. So a nice tall spine, full engagement through that body. Just taking a moment, scan the body from the top of the head down to the fingertips, down to the toe tips, just having a check-in with how your body feels as you've arrived on the mat. When you've taken a scan of the body and checked in with any injuries or any tight spots, just know to be mindful of them as you move. And then just bring the attention to the breath, and I'd like you to try and send that breath a little deeper down into the belly as you breathe in, blowing the belly up like a balloon, expanding the muscles around the ribs as you breathe in. And as you breathe out, that abdominal contraction as you draw the belly back to push that diaphragm back up to squeeze the air back out of the lungs. Take some good, long, easy belly breaths in this seated position. Opening the eyes if they're not already open. Bringing your right hand onto your left knee, your left hand behind. Turn, twist the shoulders, turn from the oblique muscles, keeping both sit bones nice and grounded. Just a little twist towards that left side of the mat. Come back through centre, this time taking your left hand to your right knee, right hand behind, breathe in, breathe out, find that rotation, the twist from the waist, pelvis faces still forward, shoulders face to the right side of the mat. Come back through the centre. Bringing your left hand down to the floor, right hand lifts, lean over to your left side. Relax the shoulders, lengthen up through that right arm towards that left side of the room. Both sit bones grounded. Come back through centre, take it over to the other side. So just taking a little lateral flexion through that spine. Back to centre. Bring the hands back onto the knees. Push the chest back, the belly back, so we take that flexion through the spine. Really roll through the shoulders, tuck the chin into the chest. And then push the ribs forward, lift up through the chest, flare through the ribs, gaze up to the ceiling and arch into the back. Take that back into flexion, so bring that chin back into the chest, push the centre of the spine to the back of the room, belly draws back. Then push those ribs forward, flare through the ribs, lift up through the chest, gaze up to the ceiling. Take it back to a centre space. Make your way onto your hands and knees, bringing the heel of the hands under the shoulders and the knees underneath the hips. So I just want you to find that position first, soften the elbows, then I'd like you to step yourself back into a full plank position. So without taking it too wide, so hands are under the shoulders, knee and your feet are hip width apart. Push into the hands and push that chest away from the floor and into that space between the shoulders. Draw that belly back. Squeezing the belly button towards the spine. Squeeze the glutes, squeeze the upper thighs. Keep that strength in that middle part of the back. Holding it in this plank position just for a couple of breaths. Then lift the hips, come to down dog. Maybe take a paddle through the feet in your first down dog, just stretching that back chain of muscles. Let go of tension you're holding in the neck and just let everything hang from the head. If you're happy to bring those heels to stillness, encourage them back towards the mat. If you need to micro-bend the knees slightly just to bring pressure out of the hamstrings, or squeeze those thighs to straighten those legs out a little more if those hamstrings are happy. Try and think about that rib and hip tether. Lifting the lower belly up and just tucking that tailbone under. So your next breath in, we come back forward to a plank position. So you can drop the knees if you wish, or turn the creases of the elbows. Start to lower to a hover. And then push into the hands, come back to a full plank. And then lower back all the way to the floor. Enter the toes. Push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release the chest down, tuck under the toes. Bring that chest back to the thighs. Push into the hands and feet, lift up the hips. Squeeze the heels back. Let go of the head. Have a little traction through the neck. Come back forward to a plank position. Turn those creases of the elbows inward this time and push those hands nice and firmly into the mat. Get that good, strong centre support. Bring your weight into your left foot and raise that right leg up to hip height without arching into that lower back. Holding it here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and lower that right foot down. Lift the hips, squeeze those heels back. Let go of the head, relax the tension in the neck. Come forward to a plank position. This time turn the creases of the elbows forward. Slowly lower to a hover. Drop the knees if you need to. Push into those hands, come back to full plank. Then lower all the way down to the floor. Push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release that chest down. Tuck under the toes. Center support, tether the ribs and hips as you bring the seat back to the feet. Push into the hands, lift up the hips, back to down dog. And squeeze those heels back. Come back forward to a plank position. Feel that stability coming into the shoulders, stability into the center of the body. Put your weight into your right foot and raise the left leg up without arching too much in the lower back. Really squeezing that left bum cheek to lift that left leg up. Not too high, just level with the hips. Keep pushing into those hands, don't collapse in the shoulders. For 3 more. 2, 1. Release the left foot down. Lift the hips back to down dog. Let go of the neck. Release tension you're holding through those shoulders. Come back forward to a plank position. This time turn the creases of the elbows forward. Start to lower to a hover. Elbows graze the ribs. Push into those hands. Lift up through that chest. Release again back to the floor. Into the toes. Push into the hands and lift up the chest. Release that chest back down. Tuck under with the toes. Chest comes back to the thighs. Push into the hands, push into the feet, lift up the hips and squeeze those heels back. Release the tension in the neck through those shoulders. Come forward to a plank position. Make sure the feet are hip width apart. Bring your left hand into the center. Reach your right hand forward, bringing that bicep towards the ear. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bring the right hand back down, left hand back to where it came from. Lift the hips and squeeze those heels back. Release the tension in the neck. Come forward to a plank position. Turn the creases of the elbows. Lower to a hover. Push into the hands, lift the chest. Keep the center support. Release all the way to the floor. Untuck the toes. Push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release the chest back down. Tuck under with the toes. Bring the chest back to the thighs. Push into the hands, push it into the feet. Lift up the hips. Squeeze the heels back. Let go of the head, let it hang. Come back forward to a plank position. This time bring your right hand into the center for support. Feet hip width apart. Push into that right hand, raise the left hand up, bicep by the ear. For 5, 4, 3, keep the hips neutral, 2, 1, release the left hand down, right hand back to where it came from. Lift the hips, squeeze the heels back, let go of the head, have a nod and a shake. Come back forward to a plank. Turn the creases of the elbows forward. Remember, you can drop the knees if you need to, if it's getting too strong. Release to a hover, elbows graze the ribs. Push into the hands, lift up the chest, straight body. Release back to the floor, untuck the toes. Push into the hands and lift up the chest. Release the chest back down, tuck under with the toes. Support the center as you bring the seat to the feet. Push into the hands, lift up the hips and squeeze those heels back. Coming down onto the knees, separate the knees as wide as the mat, bring the seat to the feet, big toes together. Just take a moment either to take on some water or some restorative breath. You'll notice that the slower we make the movements, the more warmer the body feels. the more we're asking of those muscles to control and make us a little more functional with our movement. So we're going to take another few plank sessions here. This time it's going to be elbow to knee. Sorry, actually knee to elbow. So stack yourself back up into your downward facing dog first. Coming through tabletop position, stepping both feet back to plank. Lifting the hips back to down dog. Release any tension in the neck by letting that head hang. From this position, come back forward to a plank. Keeping that nice long line, soften the elbows. Maybe turn the creases of the elbows inwards here. Then bringing your right knee to that right elbow and squeeze. Try not to sink the hips. Step that right foot back. Left knee, left elbow and squeeze. And step that left foot back. Keep the feet hip width apart. Right elbow and right knee. And step back. Try not to sink in the shoulders. Push the chest away from the floor. Left knee, left elbow. And step that left foot back. Again, right knee, right elbow. And step it back. Left knee, left elbow. And step it back. Raise the hips. Back to down dog. Let go of the head. Making sure the feet are in line with the hips, toes in front of the heels. Forward to plank, inhale. Turn the creases of the elbows forward. Release to hover off the mat, the elbows graze the ribs. Push into those hands, come back to full plank. Then release all the way to the floor, don't sink in the centre. Bring the bum down. Push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release the chest back down. Tuck under with the toes. Bring the chest back to the thighs. Push into the hands, push into the feet, lift up the hips. Squeeze those heels back. Take a nod, take a shake of the head. Next breath in, come forward to plank. Roll onto your right side, left foot slightly in front of the right as you reach the left hand to the ceiling. Hold it in side plank for 5, 4, push the hips forward, 3, 2, 1. Bring your left hand down, come back to full plank, raise the hips, back to down dog, let go of the neck. Come forward to plank. Turn the creases of the elbows. Remember, if you want to drop the knees, drop the knees. Bring the elbows to graze the ribs. Push back up. Release back down. Untuck the toes, push into the hands and lift up the chest. Release the chest back down. Tuck under with the toes. Chest come back towards the thighs. Push into the hands and feet, lift up the hips, squeeze the heels back. All the time, think of that tether of the ribs and hips so that middle of the back don't arch. Come back forward to a plank position. This time roll over onto your left side, right foot slightly in front of the left as you raise that right hand. Remember, you can drop the knee if you need to for support. Or keep both legs straight, both hips in a nice long line. For 4, 3, 2, 1. Bring the right hand down, come back to full plank. Lift the hips, squeeze those heels back. Check in, the feet are still hip width apart, let go of the head. Forward to plank on the inhale. Turn the creases of the elbows lower. Lift and lower, all the way to the floor. Untuck the toes, push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release the chest down, tuck under the toes. Bring those chests back to the thighs. Push into the hands and feet, lift up the hips, and squeeze those heels back. Release the tension in the neck. Forward to plank, inhale. Roll over onto your right side, left foot slightly in front of the right, left hand onto the left hip. Lower the right hip towards the floor as far as you can go. Lift the left hip up to the ceiling. Lower and lift. That's 2. Lower and lift. 3. One more. Lower and lift. 4. Come back to centre. Left hand back to meet the right. Lift the hips back to down dog. Release the neck. Forward to plank. Turn the creases of the elbows. Lower to a hover or drop the knees. Push into the hands and lift. And lower all the way to the floor, onto the toes. Push into the hands and lift up the chest. Release that chest back down. Tuck under the toes. Chest back towards the thighs. Push into the hands, push into the feet. Lift up the hips. Squeeze those heels back. Release the head. No tension holding around those shoulders, feet still hip width apart. Forward to plank on your inhale. Roll over onto your left, right foot just in front of the left foot. Lower the hips to the floor and lift. 3 more, lower and lift. 2 more, lower and lift. Keep pushing into that left hand, lower and lift. Bring back to the centre, right hand back to meet the left, full plank. Lift the hips, squeeze the heels back. Come forward to a plank position. Turn the creases of the elbows forward, lower to a hover. Push into the hands and lift. And lower to the floor, straight bodies, into the toes. Push into the hands, lift the chest. Release the chest back down, tuck under with the toes. Chest back to the thighs. Push into the hands, push into the feet, lift up the hips. Squeeze those heels back. Coming down onto the knees, big toes together, sit bones to the heels. Maybe bring those hands down by the sides of the body just to relax the shoulders. Or maybe take on some water if you need to hydrate. So those shoulders will be feeling a little tight, we're strengthening them. Always make sure you've got that good support by pushing that chest into that space between the shoulder blades in your planks. One more breath in this restorative place of child's pose before we continue with the next part of the strength and conditioning. Coming up onto your hands and knees first. Stepping yourself back to a plank second. Lifting the hips back to down dog third. So come forward to a plank position and roll over onto your right side, both feet stacked. Left hand on the hip, soften that right elbow. Lift the left leg up to hip height and lower. 4 more, lift that left leg and lower. Try not to let the hips drop back. 2 more, lift and lower. 1 more, lift and lower. Hands back beside each other, lift the hips, squeeze the heels back, let go of the neck, feet are hip width apart. Forward to plank on the inhale. Centre support, turn the creases of the elbow, lower to a hover. Push into those hands and lift up the chest. Release all the way to the floor, onto the toes. Push into the hands, lift the chest. Release the chest back down, tuck under the toes. Bring that chest back towards those thighs. Push into the hands, push into the feet, lift up the hips, squeeze those heels back. Release the head, release the neck. Forward to plank, inhale. Roll onto your left side, both feet stack, right hand onto the right hip. Stabilise first. If you need to drop the base knee, drop it down. Raise the right leg to hip height and lower. 3 more. Raise that right leg and lower. Try and keep a nice straight line with plank. and lift, and lower. One more time, lift, and lower. Bring the right hand back, lift the hips, take the feet hip width apart if they've come together, nod and shake the head. Forward to plank, inhale. If the body's starting fatiguing, drop the knees, bring the elbows to the ribs, come to a hover and lift. Release all the way to the floor, untuck the toes, push into the hands, lift the chest. Release the chest back down, tuck under the toes, chest back to the thighs. Push into the hands and feet, lift the hips, squeeze those heels back. Release the head, release that neck. Forward to plank on your inhale. Roll over onto your right side, bring your left hand behind the back of the head. Bring your left elbow to the right elbow and squeeze. Lift that left elbow back up. Make sure that left foot's slightly in front of the right. And squeeze it back in. And lift. And squeeze. And lift. One more time, squeeze that left elbow to the right. And lift. Bring that right hand down, full plank. Lift the hips, squeeze the heels back, feet in line with the hips. Release the neck. Forward to plank, inhale. Turn the creases of the elbows. Release to a hover. Push into the hands, lift through the chest. Release all the way to the floor. Untuck the toes, push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release that chest back down, tuck under with the toes. Chest comes back towards the thighs. Push into the hands, push into the feet. Lift up the hips, squeeze those heels back. Release the head, release the neck. Come forward to plank on your inhale. Bring your weight over to your left side, right foot slightly in front of the left, right hand behind the back of the head. Right elbow to the left elbow and twist. And lift, use that oblique strength to twist. Release right elbow to left and lift. 3 more. And lift. 2 more. Lift. 1 more. And lift. Right hand back to meet the left. Lift the hips back, down dog. Release that neck. Forward to plank, inhale. Turn the creases of the elbows. Release to a hover, straight long line. Push into the hands, lift up through the chest. Release that body all the way to the floor. Untuck the toes, push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release that chest back down, tuck under with the toes. The chest comes back to the thighs. Push into the hands, push into the feet, lift up the hips. Squeeze those heels back. Then coming down onto the knees, taking a moment in child's pose. Before we take that next section of that strength work, we'll be finding ourselves in lunge positions and finding ourselves in chair positions with slow transitions from one to the other. Bringing that forehead to the mat, maybe the hands down by the sides of the body. Just relax through those shoulders. One more breath here. Then making your way up through tabletop, up through plank, up to down dog. Lifting the hips, squeezing those heels back, releasing tension through the neck. Weight comes into your left foot as you raise that right leg up to the ceiling, hips stay neutral. Try and squeeze that right bum cheek to lift that right leg a little higher and squeeze that left heel towards the floor a little closer. Then bring that right knee towards the chest, gaze in between the hands, step your right foot through. Drop your back knee and tuck the toes, Raise the arms, find your lunge position, pushing the hips forward by squeezing that left glute, but not dipping into the hips, just pushing the hips forward, not lowering the hips. Relax the shoulders, lengthen up through the arms. Hold it in this space. Then tucking your back toes under, lifting up with your back knee to find high lunge. Again, relax the shoulders, lengthen the arms. Reach forward with the arms, forward with the torso, and step your left foot to meet your right foot, keeping knees bent, finding a chair position here. Tuck the tailbone down and draw the belly back, lift up through the arms, engage through those upper shoulder muscles that maybe you're feeling a little fatigued from those planks. Sink the hips a little lower. Hold it in this space for a little longer. Put your weight back into your right foot. Step your left foot slowly back, leaning forward with the torso. Place the left foot down. Raise the shoulders over the hips without flaring through the ribs. And bend into that right knee. Straightening as much as you can through that back left leg. Squeezing that left bum cheek to straighten that leg a little further. Relax the shoulders, lengthen the arms, maybe take the arms a little further back. Then release those hands down, either side of that right foot. Step back to plank. Lift the hips back to down dog. Come forward to plank, inhale. Turn the creases of the elbows, release to a hover. Push into the hands, lift back up through the chest. Release the body all the way down to the floor, untuck the toes, push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release the chest back down, tuck under with the toes, chest back to the thighs, core center engagement all the time. Pushing into the hands, pushing into the feet, lifting up the hips, squeezing the heels back. Relax the neck. Next breath in, left leg lifts, hips stay neutral. Squeeze the left bum cheek to lift the left leg high. Squeeze the right heel as close towards the floor as you can. Then bring that knee into the chest. Gaze in between the hands, step your left foot through. Drop your back knee down and tuck the back toes. Raise the arms, find low lunge. Take the arms back as far as you can without flaring the ribs. Push the hips forward, but don't drop into the hips. Feel that stretch through the front hip flexor. Push into both feet to stabilize. Then tuck your back toes under, lift your back knee. Find high lunge position, relax the shoulders. Then reach forward with the torso. Step in your right foot to meet the left to find chair. Sink the hips low, lift up the lower belly and tuck the tailbone under. Raise the arms as high as you can without flaring through those ribs. Put your weight back into your left foot. Send your right foot to the back. Reach forward with the torso. Place it down slow. Raise the shoulders over the hips. Find high lunge position. Maybe sink the hips a little lower. Bring the hands down either side of the left foot, step back to plank. Lift the hips, make sure the feet are hip width apart. Keep that core engagement, strengthen the centre of the body as you flow a vinyasa with that push up, forward to plank. Creases of the elbows turn forward, lower to hover. Engage the centre as you lift back up. Release the chest all the way to the floor. Untuck the toes. Push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release back down, tuck under the toes. Chest comes back to the thighs. Push into the hands, push into the feet, lift up the hips. Squeeze those heels back, relax through the neck. Feet hip width apart. We're just going to add on another couple of poses onto that flow we've just done. So your left foot is grounded, your right leg lifts. Squeeze that right bum cheek to lift that right leg as high as you can without turning of the hips. Bring that knee to the chest. Gaze in between the hands, step your right foot through. Drop your back knee and tuck the toes, raise the arms. Find lunge, squeeze the left bum cheek to push the hips forward, but don't sink the hips. Tuck the back toes under, lift the back knee, find high lunge position. Then reach forward with the torso. Step onto that right foot, bring the left foot to meet, find chair. Lift the lower belly up, tuck the tailbone under, tether the ribs and hips. Raise the arms a little higher. Hold it there. Then bring your weight back into your right foot. Slowly step your left foot back. Raise the shoulders over those hips. Drop your back heel, bring your right hand forward, left hand back, sink into that left knee. Find warrior two for a couple of breaths. Strong through the body, lift the lower belly up, tall through the spine, relax through the shoulders. Straighten your front right leg, reach forward with the right hand. Bring the right hand to the inside of the right leg as the left hand lifts. Try not to just collapse over that right leg. Feel some length coming through that right side waist. Micro bend that right knee so it doesn't lock out into hyperextension. Try and encourage your right shoulder under, your left shoulder to stack. Hips and shoulders facing to that left side of the mat. Push nice and energetically into both feet. Then just take that right hand away from the leg, bring it onto the left side waist. So you're just holding your pose with the obliques rather than the hand resting on the inside of that right leg, strengthening through that waist. Release the right hand back down. Lift the shoulders back up over the hips. Take a bend into your right knee. Windmill the hands down either side of the right foot. Step back to plank. Lift the hips. Back to down dog. Forward to plank on your inhale. Turn the creases of the elbows, core center engagement, release to a hover. Elbows graze the ribs, push into the hands, lift the chest away. Release back down all the way to the floor, untuck the toes, push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release the chest down, tuck under with the toes. Chest comes back to the thighs. Push into the hands, push into the feet, lift up the hips, squeeze the heels back. So taking that last flow on your left side, relax the neck, relax the shoulders, soften the elbows. Your left leg lifts, the hips stay neutral. Squeeze of the left bum cheek to lift the leg. Squeeze of the right heel towards the mat to stretch the back of that chain of muscles on the right. Bring that knee to the chest. Gaze in between the hands, step your left foot through. Drop your back knee, uncurl the back toes, raise the arms into low lunge. Push the hips forward, squeeze the bum, lift the lower belly up. Then tuck the back toes under. Lift up the back knee, keeping the core engagement, not flaring the ribs, keeping the shoulders relaxed. Then lean forward with the torso, weight into your left foot as you step your right foot through to find chair. Lower belly lift, tailbone tuck, rib and hip tether, lift the arms, use those deltoid muscles in the shoulders. Then lean back forward with the torso, weight back into the left leg as you step your right foot gracefully to the back of the mat. Lift the shoulders over the hips. Drop your right heel down, left hand forward, right hand back, and sink into that left knee warrior two pose. To this left side, so this right side of the room. Engagement into that lower part of the belly. Pushing into the feet nice and strong to stabilise. Then straighten that left leg, bring your left hand to the inside of the left leg as your right hand lifts. Create that left space side. Try not to hyperextend that left leg. Left shoulder tucks under, right shoulder tucks over. Then bring that left hand to the waist on the right side. Hold that position. Don't collapse over that left leg. Keep it nice and strong. Energetically pushing into the floor. Hold it just for one more breath. Release the hand back down. Bring the shoulders back over the hips. Bend into your left knee, sink into the hips. Windmill the hands either side of the left foot. Step back to a plank. Lift the hips, squeeze the heels back. One last vinyasa with push-up, come forward to a plank. Turn the creases of the elbows, release to a hover. Push into the hands, lift up with straight bodies. Release back all the way to the floor, untuck the toes. Push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release the chest back down, tuck under the toes. Chest comes back to the thighs. Push into the hands and feet, lift up the hips. Squeeze the heels back. Let go of the neck. Then start to walk the feet towards the front of the mat. Bringing the heels on, toes slightly off. Take a hold of the elbows, bend the knees, just let everything hang in that centre of the body. Maybe make a few circles with the elbows, stretching those shoulders from all that hard work push-up they've been doing. Take that circles in the opposite direction. And then bring the hands together at the chest, palms together, sink into the bum, into the hips. Bring the elbows to the inside of the knees, taking Malasana squat. That yogic squat, heels in, toes out. Trying to keep the heels on the floor if you can. You can always use a block if you wish, just to prop under that bum if your bum doesn't come quite as low as you'd wish. When you've found your position of yogic squat, however high or low you've gone, when elbows at the moment are on the inside of the knees, just see if you can keep those knees where they are. Release the elbows away from the knees, but still keep the knees squeezing out, so we're squeezing the outside of the hips, strengthening through those glute medius. Maybe just bringing the hands to the floor or keeping them palms together, elbows together. Breathe easy breaths here. One more breath. Then release the hands behind you, bring the bum to the centre of the mat, heels to the front of the mat. And we're just going to do a psoas strengthening exercise. Take a hold of a block or anything that has any height. So you've got 1 height, 2 heights, 3 heights, depending on where you want to go with it. I'll take it to the middle height. So we're going to take your right foot out to the side, mirror imaging you here, left foot to the inside. So either bring the hands down by the sides of the body or tent the fingers. The aim is to keep the spine nice and tall, grow up through the crown. So push into those fingertips. On your breath in, lift up through that left leg, bring it over to the inside and back. That's 1. We're taking 10. Try not to let that torso swing. Keep it nice and stable. 2. And 3. And 4. And 5. If you feel you can go up a little higher, heighten that block. If you get cramp like I've just done, just give that muscle a massage. And breathe in, lift, over, in, and back. 6 and 7. Remember, keep that torso tall. Try not to swing the body. 8 9 and 10. Just let that leg have a little bit of a shake. Then move that leg over to the side and take it on the opposite side. So bringing your right leg in. Again, find that support. Either pushing into the wrists, the fingertips, keep the back tall. Breathe in, lift and lower. 1 and 2. Again, try not to let the torso swing. And 3. Nice and slow. 4. And 5. Remember, you can take it up a little higher. 6 Try not to let the lower back arch, 9, like I just did. And 10. Bring both feet back together, just remove the block, just give those legs a shake. And then we're going to make a way down onto the floor. So doing a little bit of core strength as we go. Just bring your block with you, arms out to a T shape. Relax the shoulders, lengthen through the spine. Slowly relax down towards the floor, as slow as you can. Keeping each vertebrae coming down one at a time. Noticing the long limbs that help the core strength that has to engage to lower those shoulders back to the mat. Then when you get to the floor, take a bend into both knees. Place a block or something in between those knees, or a book or something. Bring those feet in towards the bum, and I want you to really concentrate on the squeeze of the knees. So then push into the feet, slowly raise those hips, taking those hip flexors into stretch and the glutes into strengthening. Squeezing those knees into that block or a book or a cushion. And feeling those inner adductors working to hold on to that block so the knees don't splay any further than hip width apart. Really push into the big toe side of the feet, the little toe side of the feet. So we've got full engagement into the floor. Squeeze that bum to lift those hips a little higher and squeeze those knees into the block to engage those inner adductors. Hold it here for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and slowly let those bums come back down towards the floor. Release the block, place the block just by the side. Still keeping our feet hip width apart. Push those lower spines into the mat. I want you to take a breath in. On your out breath, bring your right knee over the right hip. Take another breath in. Keep pushing the lower back into the floor. Lift your left knee up to meet the right. Breath out. Breath in. Lower that left leg back to the floor. Keep pushing that lower spine into the mat. Breathe in. Breathe out. Lower the right leg to the floor. Again, controlled movement. Breathe in. Breathe out. Lift the left knee to come up over the left hip. Breathe in. Right knee to come over the right hip and hold it there. Breathe in. Breathe out. Lower the right foot back to the floor. Breathe in. Lower the left foot back to the floor all the time, keeping that back pushed into the floor. Breathe in. Breathe out, lift the right leg up to over the hip. Breathe in. Breathe out, lift the left knee without that lower back arching. And breathe out. Breathe in. Lower that left foot on the out breath. Breathe in. Lower the right foot on the out breath. Breathe in. Lift the left leg up, left knee over the hip. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out, lift the right leg. Breathe in. Drop the right foot to the floor on your out breath. Breathe in. Drop your left foot to the floor on your out breath. Feet stay hip width apart. Bring the hands onto the hips, elbows away. Push into the feet, raise the hips up so it's in a long line from the shoulders to the knees, straight line. Keeping your toes in front of the heels, feet have to come back to that hip width apart as you place them down. Take a breath in. On your out breath, put your weight into your left leg and reach out the heel of the right foot. Right knee stays in line with the left. Breathe in. Breathe out and place that right foot back to where it came from. Breathe in. On your breath out, put your weight into your right foot. Send your left heel away. Left knee in line with the right. Breathe in. Breathe out. Bring that left foot back to meet where it came from. Keep those hips stable. Breathe in. Breathe out, send your right leg out straight. Try not to let the hips rock from side to side. Breathe in. Breathe out, bring your right foot back to where it came from. Breathe in. Breathe out, lengthen out through that left leg. Breathe in. Breathe out, bring that left foot back to where it came from. Lower those hips all the way back to the floor. Bring the knees into the chest. Keep the lower spine on the mat as you squeeze those knees in. Get into those hip flexors. Push those shoulders into the mat. Then bring those elbows to the inside of the knees. Take a hold of the shins, the ankles or the outside of the feet. Squeeze the knees in towards those armpits. Find that happy baby space. And just maybe have a little rock of that body from side to side. So starting to really bring that practice down for relaxation. And then release those feet to the floor. Keep the knees in the center, feet out to mat width apart, arms cactus arm or T-shape. Let those knees go over to your left, your gaze over to the right, and just feel that stretch through that hip flexor on the right side of the body. Maybe gaze towards that right elbow or right hand. Bring those knees back to the center. And then take those knees over to the right side, the gaze over to the left side. Feel that stretch down that left hip flexor. Bring those knees back to the center. Let the knees drop internally for a breath. Then heel toe the feet back into the middle. Let the knees drop out to the side, soles of the feet come together. Maybe just having a little rock of those hips, those knees from side to side. Bringing the hands back onto either the hips, if you're staying in this position for relaxation, or down by the sides of the body as you straighten through the legs. Bringing the feet to the length of the mat if you're coming fully flat. Letting the feet drop out to the side. Just tuck under the tailbone, let the lower spine push into the floor. Maybe have a rock of the hips. Maybe a turn of the head in one direction. Bringing it back through centre, over to the other side. Back into the middle. Just take a few moments, relax the forehead, the jaw. Let that tongue drop away from the roof of the mouth, the lips gently part. Bring the focus to the top of the head, forehead, eyebrows, eyes, nose, cheeks, lips, jaw, throat, collarbones, shoulders, tops of the arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, palms of the hands, 8 fingers, 2 thumbs, and the space between them. The chest, ribs, belly, and hips. The spine from the top of the head all the way down to that sacrum, the lower part of the spine. Sit bones, thighs, knees, shins and calves, ankles, soles of the feet, all 10 toes and the space between them. Noticing the parts of the body touching the mat. Noticing the clothes that are touching the skin. Noticing the breath. Easy breaths in, long breaths out. Just letting everything settle to the floor. Be supported by the earth. If you wish to stay here a little longer, pause me now. Or if you're coming out with me, maybe wriggle the fingers and the toes. Maybe take some rotation through the wrists, through the ankles. Maybe take a full body stretch, stretching the hands up and over the head, stretching through the fingers, the toes. Maybe arching into that lower back. Then bringing the hands up and over, bringing the knees in towards the chest, hugging those knees into the body, maybe having a little rock of that body from side to side, just massaging that spine, thanking it for practice. Then taking a hold of the creases of the knees, just rocking up and down that spine a couple of times, just feeling all those muscles in that back being massaged. When you next come up to seated, find that seated position. Keeping the eyes gently closed, spine tall, shoulders relaxed with a slight bow through the head. Your next breath in, bring the hands up and over the head, bring the palms together at the top and bring the hands to the chest. Rub the palms of those hands together to create a little heat in those palms. And then placing those palms over the eyes, blinking into the palms and allowing light through the fingers. Take a nice long deep breath in. On your out breath, bring the hands to the chest, soft gaze to the floor. Have peace in your thoughts, your words, your hearts, from my heart to yours. Namaste.